It's crazy to me how our minds work. How we can hear a song and it takes us back to the very spot we heard it years ago. How it can cause us to feel what we were feeling at that time, to smell the smells, to literally be transported back in time to the very place we were. Or to travel down a childhood road and go back to playing kick the can when you were 6 years old. Or to read 2 words and remember everything about a trip you took. Those 2 words for me, Monterrey, Mexico. It's a place that I've been to 3 times. It's an area that holds a special place in my heart. Reading those 2 words transports me back to the dirt roads we walked. It takes me back to the trash heap where some of the residents had built their homes from. And it takes me back to a time where I bought homemade, flavored ice drinks. Monterrey, Mexico. For 3 years, I spent 7 days with those people as part of a mission trip with our church. The main reason we went was to help do building projects and minister to kids who lived at a local orphanage down there. It broke me. The kids at that specific orphanage were dropped off by their parents because they couldn't afford to keep them. Some of them, their mother's boyfriend had made her drop them off because they couldn't help their family make any money. Some of the kids that had been there since they were babies would be picked back up by their families as soon as they were old enough to work. It was heartbreaking. Essentially, those kids at that orphanage were good-for-nothings in the eyes of their parents. They weren't good for anything, and so their families had given them away. I will never forget those 3 summers, and I often wonder what happened to those kids. And now today, as I was reading the Bible, I came across this phrase, good for nothing. Check this out. It's found in 1 Kings chapter 9, verses 10 through 13, and it says this: At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these 2 buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and juniper and gold he wanted. But when Hiram went down from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother? He asked. And he called them the land of Kabul, a name they have to this day. King David, because of the wars he faced, couldn't build a temple for the Lord. But Solomon, because he and Israel were enjoying a time of peace, wanted to build a temple for the Lord God. The king of Tyre had always been on friendly terms with King David, and so Solomon, now king of Israel, asked the king of Tyre to provide cedar for the temple. And not only did the king of Tyre provide cedar for the temple, but over the next 20 years, the king of Tyre gave Solomon cedar, juniper, and gold to help build not only the temple, but also Solomon's palace as well. And so at the end of 20 years, Solomon gave away part of God's promised land to King Hiram, 20 towns in Galilee, as a gift for the king's services. And after King Hiram went to visit these towns, upon looking at them, he called them the land of Kabul. Essentially, he called them good-for-nothing towns. I don't know where you're at right now in life, what's going on in your world, what's going on at work, in your relationships, as an adult or as a student. I remember back to high school as a skinny freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, seeing friends in relationships. And then there was me, no girlfriend, no relationship, wondering what was wrong with me. Maybe that's you right now, or maybe you're struggling at the sport you play. While you have fun playing baseball or soccer or football or whatever sport it is, the team you're on is hard to play with because when you make a mistake, they jump down your throat and you start to feel like you can't do anything right. Or maybe work just sucks right now. You feel like you can't win. Sales are down. You feel like you're doing your best, but your best just isn't good enough. Or maybe life is simply hard. You feel all alone, down, depressed, connected with nobody, and you feel, well, good for nothing. The land of Kabul, good for nothing towns. Some days, that's the land you live in, maybe more days than you care to admit. Here's the thing with these towns. The very towns that the king of Tyre called good for nothing, these are the very towns that Jesus chose as the early focal point of his ministry on earth. The very towns that King Hiram didn't want anything to do with are the very towns that Jesus chose to go to. You see, what someone calls worthless, Jesus calls valuable. What someone calls good for nothing, Jesus calls loved. King Hiram didn't see the value in these towns, but Jesus saw the people in these towns. And Jesus sees you right now where you're at. You might feel worthless, but Jesus sees you as valuable. You might feel unlovable, but Jesus sees you as you are and loves you as you are. You might feel alone, but Jesus is calling out and wants a relationship with you. You might feel good for nothing, but Jesus is calling you to join his team and his movement. I don't know where you're at in life right now, but I do know this. God himself sent his son Jesus to earth to save you out of whatever you find yourself in right now. The hurt, the pain, the confusion, the trouble. Jesus has come so that you can find relationship and love and healing. Jesus has come to find you. You aren't a good for nothing. You are loved and wanted and valued by God himself, by Jesus. Psalm 147 verses 10 and 11 says, "His pleasure is not in the strength of a horse, nor his delight in the legs of a man. The Lord delights in those who fear him, who put their hope in his unfailing love." You see, God is a God of strength, but he doesn't delight in power. No. More than anything, he loves to be in a close relationship to the very people who respond to his love. And it's my prayer that you'll respond to his love even right now.